Yo, what's up guys? How are you doing? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review, and today I'm going to do one of my favorite things and discuss some more possible future Nintendo Switch games. So there's been a lot of talk lately on the internet about what games and companies might be bringing titles to the Nintendo Switch sometime soon. Of course, most immediately we think of 2018 because that is, crazily enough, right around the corner, which, man, do I feel old. It's like every other second is just another year going by. I just can't even believe it. So with 2018 right around the corner and 2017 getting ready to just finally cap itself off, an amazing year for Nintendo and for its brand new console, the Switch. An amazing year for gaming across the board. I mean, yeah, Microsoft floundered a little bit in the library department, but it did release a brand new console, which apparently is a very quality machine, the Xbox One X. Sony and the PS4 had a very solid year, and of course, like I already mentioned, Nintendo and the Switch has been just completely insane. Now, I of course have talked about it a few times as well. What kind of things will we see for the Switch in 2018? It is a crazy exciting concept. I've discussed first-party Nintendo games. I've discussed third-party games and multi-platforms coming to the Switch. I've discussed new IPs from the Nintendo Switch. I haven't yet gotten to indies, but thanks to a user question, I will probably be touching on the indie scene and some stuff I'm excited for next year on that front as well. But through a lot of my different conversations, mostly the first-party stuff I think we might be seeing in the next year or two, Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon, of course, has been a big topic, especially for me on my channel on Rule of Two Review, about possible future things we could see for the Switch. There are three main first-party Nintendo franchises I haven't really talked about too much, a little bit, but not so much. And that's what I wanted to do today and discuss these three specific franchises and what I'm looking forward to, what I'm expecting. Will we see them in 2018? And if not, when will they come? And just overall my excitement level for these titles. So let's start off first with the biggest. And when I say biggest, I mean in terms of both sales and I think the success the title will actually see, and the game that I feel is the most likely to show up next year, most immediately in 2018. And I have talked about this a few times. It won't be a surprise to you guys. And that is Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is a huge wild card franchise that Nintendo has up its sleeve that I think when people think about their biggest and most successful and hottest selling franchises and IPs, I think people forget that Animal Crossing is one of those upper tier series. And I mean, it's not like people forget about the franchise and people aren't excited and people maybe don't know that it's a big seller, but I think that it's kind of gotten lost in the conversation the last couple of months, really, as we've started to look forward to 2018 for the Nintendo Switch. We all know about the Marios and the Zeldas and the Mario Karts and the Smash Brothers and the Pokemons and all of these things, but Animal Crossing really is, when a great title comes out, a huge seller and a big deal to the Nintendo audience. And it's interesting because a lot of you guys who are familiar with me and Rule of Two Review, you know that I'm not really big on Animal Crossing. It's not a series for me. I've dabbled in it a little bit, mostly with the original GameCube release and a little bit on the DS or 3DS, one of the portable DS versions. I don't even remember. There was like the Tree Folk and then the Happy Home Design or something or other. I don't know. But it is a series I've also mentioned my girlfriend is a huge fan of. She's enjoying the Pocket Camp mobile game that's been released recently, and apparently that's pretty good. She's having fun with it. And so it's not like Animal Crossing is a series necessarily on my personal radar. It's more on my radar for titles that I think make sense for Nintendo very soon in 2018. And part of the reason, when we think about this whole thing, part of the reason 2018 Nintendo has been so interesting to me is because it is this weird mystery box and this mystery window right now for the console. And coming off of this crazy launch here that we've all discussed 2,000 times about how many amazing first-party franchises and games Nintendo managed to get out this year, as well as the third party starting to really show up at the end of the year as well, it's like, well, how do you follow that up? What can we expect or demand or be excited for in 2018? And that's why discussing this stuff has been so exciting. And we've only known of a handful of things to expect specifically in 2018, especially from Nintendo. Kirby, Yoshi, Fire Emblem, some great stuff, very exciting. But what about some other bigger games? And people want to start throwing in Metroid and Pokemon, which could happen, even though I don't really believe it. Those could happen. To me, that other, like I said, the dark horse, wild card, big franchise from Nintendo, beyond Smash Brothers, which I think has a good chance as well. But for me, it's Animal Crossing. Personally, I think that whether we get this Nintendo Direct in January that a lot of us are expecting, or if it's a random Nintendo Direct earlier in the first or second quarter of the year, or if it's one of the big reveals at E3, sometime in the first 6 months of 2018, my personal theory and expectation is that we will see Animal Crossing announced from Nintendo, and with any luck, it'll be announced, and I also expect this as well, as a 2018 game. Maybe it's going to be like their May title, maybe it becomes like their early holiday, like September, October title, maybe it becomes their big November release. I feel like that's less likely. I could see it being more like an August, September, October kind of thing, but at this point, it's just open game as far as what Nintendo wants to do with it. I just know that my personal feeling that I'm trying to get across in this video is that I think Animal Crossing is the game that we should most have on our radar, and it could and probably will be, especially if it's good, if it's not an Amiibo Festival board game, if it's a legit Animal Crossing, the true next console Animal Crossing that fans of that series have been waiting for, it will be huge, and I expect it next year. Now let's talk about another series that, in my opinion, from what I've seen, has probably had the least amount of talk and attention focused on it since the Switch has come out, and it's Donkey Kong. And of course, Donkey Kong's had a very interesting road the last couple of years because there was kind of a resurgence thanks to Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii, and then of course Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, which was one of the many hidden gems of the Wii U and one of the greatest first-party games released on that console. And of course it's a little tricky because we know Retro Studios, previously of Metroid Prime fame, moved to these two Donkey Kong Country revival titles, and they were both fantastic. I mean, I cannot believe really how good Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii was when that came out. 2010, 2011, I can't remember when it actually released, but I remember when that game came out. I was certainly excited. I loved the idea of them bringing that back, and Retro was working on it, and it looked fantastic and beautiful for the Wii hardware, and it blew me away. Much, much better than my very high expectations. I really think Donkey Kong Country Returns is a very special game. Tropical Freeze, arguably the better made game, and certainly fantastic, and a perfect sequel that did enough new things while still feeling like the Returns game that came before it. I'm a bigger fan of Returns because I think I was more excited when that game came out, but Tropical Freeze was an incredible sequel that I loved to death, absolutely. So we've had Retro knock it out of the park twice with those games, but we now know that Retro is working on something mysterious. Most people assume it is a new IP. That is my guess, is a new IP. We might get the surprise that it's another Donkey Kong Country game, and if so, that would be weird and disappointing, but at the same time, still exciting because we know it would be fantastic. I like to think that Retro isn't involved, but still Nintendo is working on something new for Donkey Kong. And it might not even be a Donkey Kong Country game, you guys. We have to absolutely keep that in our minds as a possibility. It could be another Donkey Kong 64 kind of thing. Maybe they want to go to the big third-person kind of adventure game. Maybe they want to make it more action-oriented. Maybe they do something weirdly retro and make it kind of like the older Atari and arcade Donkey Kong games. I mean, I don't really expect that, but you never know, and Nintendo has seen success doing weird retro ideas in the past, but I mean, at the end of the day, I probably still expect it to be some sort of adventure platformer, whether it's 2D, whether it's 3D, whether it's third person, whether it's something retro, who knows? And I don't mean retro, of course, as in the studio, but retro as in like the gameplay genre, the style of a retro throwback sort of gameplay. So I don't really know what to exactly expect, but I feel like it's something that at this point, when there's so many mysteries as far as what first-party titles Nintendo is going to bring to us next year, this is one of the franchises that I myself have not yet touched on, and like I said, I've seen almost no one bring up the possibility of a Donkey Kong Country or a DKC game or sequel coming out for the Switch anytime soon, and I think that that could be another surprise in a Nintendo Direct. January, middle of the spring, E3, whatever, I could kind of see Nintendo dropping this big surprise of here's the next legit, serious Donkey Kong game. And I don't really know what I prefer. Probably 2D. I guess I kind of want another Donkey Kong Country game. It's just more that I don't necessarily want Retro to be the team on it because I'm more excited for them doing something else. So I would like Donkey Kong to come back in 2018. I think there's a decent shot, 50-50 shot. And I wouldn't be sad if it was another Donkey Kong Country game. And the last series I want to talk about, I've just sadly not given nearly enough attention to, which breaks my heart to realize because of how much I freaking love this series. And it is Pikmin / Pikmin 4. Can we assume that we have a Pikmin 4 on the way? I kind of think it's safe to assume so, but it is also tough to really say that for sure because of I know people want to say that this is impossible, and I do believe that Nintendo and Miyamoto have confirmed this, but in my opinion, I'm not going to believe it until we see Pikmin 4. But there is the possibility that the Pikmin 3DS game was really the game that Miyamoto first brought up as the new Pikmin game a couple of years ago, 2015, I think, because they announced that, they said they're working on it, and it was almost done, which is the key point here. It was almost done, and then a year later, we finally see, oh, but there's a Pikmin 3DS game coming, and so that was obviously almost done, based on the time that Miyamoto would have first brought up the idea of a new Pikmin. So, I mean, there's the possibility that truly they were talking about that 3DS game. But make no mistake, guys, I don't really believe that. I have to kind of acknowledge it for the sake of the conversation. But really, there probably is a true Pikmin sequel, a sequel to Part 3, which of course would be Part 4, Pikmin 4, probably coming sometime down the pipe. And as I've said before, I feel like that's another series or title that has a 50-50 shot at also showing up next year. Like this, along with these other two franchises I've talked about, these are all titles and series that I feel have a 50-50 or better chance at showing up in 2018. Pikmin 4 is no different. And just, whoa, do I want this game. I cannot believe how good Pikmin 3 really was. It absolutely blew me away. I liked Pikmin 1 a lot. Pikmin 2, I only played a little bit, but I certainly thought it was pretty good. I don't even remember if I owned it or if I checked it out from GameStop. I was working for GameStop at the time. But I remember spending a couple of hours on it and thinking, yeah, this is really good. But then I got distracted and I never made it back to it, sadly. Not even when they re-released it on the Wii. But then Pikmin 3 came out. I was so excited for that game. And it, just like Donkey Kong Country Returns, it blew my expectations away. My already high expectations were met and exceeded with Pikmin 3. For me, maybe not for everybody, but for myself, partly because of using the Wii U's gamepad, like sitting next to me as like a map screen that I could interact with, and then also using the amazing Wiimote and nunchuck controls to play that game. Oh my goodness. I mean, that was part of why it was so great. The control setup and having a third-party kind of map situation on my gamepad was so cool to me, and it was beautiful, and the game was so immersive, and the gameplay was so incredible and fun, and it was just great to be in the Pikmin world again. I thought it was fantastic. And when I think about that on the Switch, I get excited because the Joy-Cons kind of allow for a similar control scheme. What we can't have is the dual screen map experience, which my heart weeps for that. I've said that ever since the Switch was announced. I was excited for it, but sad that we couldn't get the dual screen thing that the Wii U and the 3DS allowed for. And so when we think about a Pikmin 4, we know we wouldn't be able to do that same kind of thing again, and yes, that makes me sad. But I still believe they could make, an equal quality, if maybe even better Pikmin experience without that. And the Joy-Cons could still at least allow us to do the pointer controls and the ability to kind of move your cursor of where Olimar or whatever character is going to be throwing Pikmin based on where you're moving it around the map. That gets me excited, man. I thought that was so amazing for Pikmin 3. And again, I know they introduced that in the Wii re-releases of the GameCube games, but it was kind of built into Pikmin 3 from the ground up, and it just felt really great and fantastic. And so when I think of Pikmin 4, it's another one of those series that I think we might see announced or released in 2018. And suddenly, along with these other games, we might be filling in some of these first-party gaps in 2018 for the Switch. And these are series that aren't the upper echelon of Smash Brothers, Mario, Metroid, Pokemon, Zelda, these upper-tier kind of franchises. These are some of the mid-tier games, and I think it's completely okay and not a disservice to these franchises or disrespectful to say Pikmin or Donkey Kong is a mid-tier franchise. To me, Animal Crossing is kind of really getting closer up to that top tier, but it's kind of like in between, so, that is what it is. But across the board, these franchises, Pikmin included, to me, feel like those mid-tier games, like a Yoshi and a Kirby as well, that are going to be great titles that will probably sell well, they will be very high quality, and they will continue to push forward how amazing the library, first-party library for the Switch is. And it's why I think there is a pretty good shot that if Pikmin 4 is a real game they're working on, that next year is when I think we'll see it. So yeah, just my thoughts and opinions and speculations and guesses about these franchises and some more first-party games from Nintendo we might see fill in the Nintendo Switch library next year in 2018. Mostly just because you guys know me. It's just fun to do so. I love having this channel because it gives me a reason to just BS to you guys about things that get me excited, and mostly Nintendo and the Switch, what I'm looking forward to, what are my wishes and my dreams, and what things I think might happen. And like I said, I'm putting a 50-50 or above for all three of these franchises being shown some sort of love and release or announcement in 2018. And I would think that most of you guys out there, Nintendo fans and Switch gamers, are probably very excited at the prospect at some or all three of these franchises showing up next year in some fashion. So I'm expecting that first 6 months, January, springtime, E3, whatever it is, we're going to probably hear from one or all of these. And that could be so excellent, especially if they all end up releasing in 2018 alongside of Fire Emblem, Kirby, and Yoshi. I mean, we won't even need Metroid or Pokemon. Again, they may still show up, those games, but we wouldn't even need them till 2019 if all of these games and these franchises are released in 2018. So what do you guys think? Are you excited for these franchises possibly showing up? Do you believe in them like I do, or do you think that some or all of them are dead or nowhere near on the radar as soon as I happen to think they are in 2018? You know, a lot to think about and discuss and speculate and get excited for. So tell me what you guys think of my theories on these three franchises. And that will be it from me today. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.